unique ways to identify this talent and match them to the opportunities. We have clients in around 20 plus countries, and like we have over 700 plus clients across the globe. So that's a little bit about me and shortlist. I'll pass on the baton to Himanshu.
Hey, thanks, Sudhir, for that. So I'll quickly introduce myself. I'm Himanshu. I lead customer success for Darwinbox. Darwinbox is a HRMS service provider. It is a SaaS platform which caters to the entire hire to retire process for organizations. We have around 500 plus organizations on our platform today, and more than 1 million employees that use Darwinbox, again spread across more than 50 countries where we service our clients. That is what I do currently, but come with a lot of background in HR and consulting. Was doing a lot of advisory work in learning and development and other fields in Ernst & Young, and then post that did work with an organization called One-to-One Health, where again was part of the leadership there. So yeah, thank you so much. And great. So Asha, passing it on to you.
Thank you, Himanshu, and Sudhir, nice to know. I'm Asha Prakash, and I have been working with HCL for the past 20 years, and I have about 27 years of global delivery and also learning and development experience, and I have been in the leadership position, both in delivery and also in the L&D space, and hope to have and see a lot of views in the L&D and this year's L&D, particularly post-pandemic. I'm excited to be part of this event. Thank you.
Over to you, Pranav. Thank you, Asha.
Yeah, thanks. Hi, everyone. I'm Pranav Kaushal, and I'm part of the CTO's office at HCL. And I lead open innovation programs globally. And we work with a plethora of startups, the VCs, the trade mission or consulates of various governments across the globe. And yeah.
Great. Thank you so much for wonderful intros. I see there is a lot of texture in the type of background and experience we all bring to the table. I'm excited about the session today and hearing from all of you on different thoughts. So to begin with, we all understand the learning and development, which used to be more of a check the box thing in the past, has turned into a mandatory requirement in the latest fast moving technology or generation. When I started my career almost like 18-20 years back, people were just grouping in the auditoriums for some training sessions, and people just used to check the box to say they have attended a training, but there was very less engagement. It was not customized. It was very boring, and it was a day off work. That's how it was treated in those days. From then, I'm like, no, it changed to a situation where training is mandatory to upkeep yourself with the ever-changing situations in the market and changing professionals' lives. So that said, I've seen worked at like large companies like Hewlett Packard, Merrill Lynch, Bank of America, and also startups where I've been a founding member. And it is very, very different. I would like to gather your views to see how the learning and development is at startups and large companies. So I'll start with Himanshu. I'm like, no, you're working at Darwinbox, or I'm like from your startup ecosystem experience. How has learning and development been implemented in your companies or startups?
So thanks for that question, Sudhir. And I'll maybe take a step back and talk a little about how I have seen things changing, and specifically we'll talk about startups and how things are changing for startups. So if you look at the earlier world, and as you rightly mentioned, the way learning was given to people. There was not much of option. Again, one of the very common terminologies was training needs identification. Training needs were identified, then 5 learning were identified, and then it was given, okay, you will go through these 3 learnings. There was not much of an option. And the major shift that we have seen across, and even either in our clients or what we are doing today for ourselves, the major shift that I have seen is, as it is with every other thing, now people have choices. And people want to exercise those choices. So the learner is being kept at the center of everything that is being done. And according and around the learner, things are being developed. So if you see earlier, it was only learning and then applying it. But now very important component of searching the learning that you want, then learning itself and applying it has come. So if the biggest thing, again, if I talk about startups, and while So there are two attributes that I would like to call out. So in startups, one thing which is very important is agility. So things are changing very fast. Like even in our environment, we are doing a release once every month. So the whole content changes every month, and content development itself becomes a challenge. So the agility, how do you manage agility when you're doing a learning? Second is a limited set of resources. We are not someone with many resources, and every startup has got a limit in terms of the resources they have, whether it is in terms of people's time or it is in terms of the money that they can spend. There's a limit in terms of resources. So these are the two important dimensions in terms of whether you have the resources and whether you're being agile or not. And this is what we are trying to manage in Darwinbox, or we see even in our customers that they're trying to manage. Now, again, the way I see things happening is agility of content is being developed by crowdsourcing content or keeping content very minimal, plus enabling community learning. And that is one of the important factors that is coming up. And plus, in terms of managing resources, people are more action oriented. They want to learn what they can apply. It is not that they just want to consume content. So again, giving the right content at the right time is becoming very important, especially from a startup perspective. So yeah, that is my viewpoint from a startup perspective.
Thank you, Himanshu. Asha, can you share some views about how is L&D implemented at HCL or large corporations?
Asha, you're on mute.
Thank you, Himanshu. So taking it from where Himanshu stopped and talked about the challenges of the startup, the problems or the challenges at large organizations are little diverse and different, right? From a L&D perspective, there are two important factors. The business we do is very, very diverse because, as most of you know, we are a very versatile, multi-portfolio services organization, right? And also we do products as well of late in the last 2+ years, right? So our business is very diverse, and also our workforce is very diverse and geo-diverse and the voluminous. So these are some of the very key challenges which I look at as a L&D head when I implement any new learning initiative, right? So what we generally need to do is that in a large organization, we need to be very clear about what is it that we are targeting, who are the target learners, okay, and what are the specific business reasons why these learnings are being enrolled, plus what is the schedule, or what is the end objective with which we are rolling out these things become very, very important. In addition to this, we also believe in giving free hands to employees where they can learn what they think is a priority in their career. See, one is an assisted learning, right? One is a mentored or assisted learning. Another one is a self-paced. Self-paced means I'm not talking about the virtual learning. I'm saying, I can go for a self-paced instructor-led or e-learning or whatever it is, right? So in a large organization, handling these challenges would be very, very important and key. And any programs of our groups will look at these challenges before we roll it out. It's highly important because whatever I roll it out to India, I need to ensure that every other person in the US gets those learnings. So it's very important to keep these three things in mind.
Great. So with so many challenges that your large corporations have, like how is technology playing a role to overcome these challenges? Or
Okay,
what initiatives have you taken,
yeah.
or any suggestions that we can take away?
So they're very, very, very important because, as I mean, I'm again just going back to what Himanshu was saying, in today's world, or possibly in the last one decade, learning has taken a center place. Okay. So wherever you go, whichever business you go to start talking to a customer, it boils down to, how are you developing your people? How are you, enabling your people to do the job on the ground? Because all of us know that, we are not a sand and mix kind of a factory. The software industry is not like that, because every day lots of the tools and the technologies keep coming out and people like us keep inventing, right? There is always a skill which an employee needs to develop, which means that there is always a scope for learning and development team, and we need to enroll it out. Correct? So learning is in the center of any business today we do. Correct? So having said that, with these kinds of challenges, what we have, technology is a very, very important key player. Right? See, we use technology. I mean, but for this technology, so we wouldn't have, and everybody on the call, we wouldn't have survived this pandemic in the last 10 months, right? Almost the same time last year, we were discussing in the rooms and seeing, if this pandemic persists, how are we going to enable the business? Around the same time last year, okay, where I used to have a lot of the boardroom sessions with my teams, and we started whiteboarding. How are we going to support all our users if all of them are not going to come to office? So technology was a very, very key driver. Like we realized the importance of digital learning so much, and so in a large magnitude last year during the same time, so which helped us to survive. And you guys have seen how HCL has been performing, and I think we are also I'm very happy to say that we are a very large key player, being L&D, and we have supported the businesses. So digital learning is one of the stuff, Sudhir, I think is a way to go. Is very important.
Great, great. Himanshu, you have anything to add in terms of adding any perspectives about how technology is playing a role in L&D?
Right. So, and as I would just like to continue what Asha is saying, and very true in terms of the way technology has really enabled. The fact is, in fact, if you go and look at any of the any of the trends or the best practices that were published even last year or a year before last, see what we realized that, and especially with diverse environments like HCL and all, we realized that classroom training is not a sustainable or scalable thing. So that was realized long back, and we had started moving towards the virtual learning space. And that was a movement that was started. The pandemic heavily accelerated it. The pandemic said that, hey, classroom learnings are not sustainable. And you will have many such scenarios in the future where you will have to have virtual learning spaces. So virtual learning was accelerated. It was already a concept. And if you see the trends, most of the organizations had adopted virtual learning and they were moving towards it. A couple of things that have, in fact, over the last year that have started taking effect, and I see in the future will be more, are primarily two things. One is the learning experiences, and you will see many technology tools that are coming out which are talking about learning experiences. They are saying, hey, we'll collate the content from 10 places, we'll give you the best navigable experience, because again, they are moving, what I said, they're keeping the learners at the center of it, and they're trying to build a certain ecosystem so that I can learn in my own way. If I can consume videos, I'll be given videos. If I can consume articles, I'll be served articles, and so on and so forth. So learning experience, there is a heavy trend of organizations picking up learning experience platforms. The other thing which organizations, and I have seen, are focusing on currently is talking about mobile learning. So again, in virtual learning, moving towards mobile learning. Many of the content is being consumed on mobile. So everything that you create from a content creation, or even, when you serve it to your learners, it is on mobile. So learning experience and mobile learning are two things from a technology perspective that I see changing. And in the future, we'll have more and more uptake. The third and very important thing, and because I was talking about startups, is collaborative learning or network learning. So I see a lot of collaboration tools being used in learning, and we have started using internally collaboration tools for learning, because that is the way you can learn fastest and apply then and there. And especially I lead customer success. I see my people sitting in front of clients and they will have a question. And the best way to know and learn and reapply it is put a thing on Slack, ask on WhatsApp, and you will get the answer there. You learn, you pick up, and you apply.
Great. Speaking of technology, I'm like artificial intelligence is one piece that is hasn't didn't leave any particular area of our lives, and definitely that is being used in learning and development activities as well. Pranav, any thoughts on like how AI has been helping in L&D activities, or like how is it helping people increase the engagement rates, or is it helping teach them? Like Asha was saying, there is assisted learning, assistive learning. I'm like, is AI really playing a role there?
See, absolutely. So we are still, if I talk about AI, we are still to go deep into AI at this point of time. But maybe down a couple of years or 3 years, it is going to be a huge technology that is going to boost L&D. So if I talk about how it is being used right now, the use of big data analytics with machine learning, right, and how it is being used. So how employees are currently using whatever training modules are being given to them, right? How are they being consumed? And so AI can be used to analyze the behavior of the employees. So that is one way, and I see that the curriculum can be updated depending upon which employee in which category is using what modules, right, for learning. So yeah, that is one area I potentially see.
Great. Just like everybody has a very different pace of learning. One thing is like, suggesting them what course to take next, and the other thing is about taking them at a faster pace versus a medium pace versus a slow pace, depending on like how familiar you are with the technology. Do you have any other thoughts on how AI is helping, or is it not really helping? I mean, because is it in a hype? Any other thoughts from you, Himanshu or Asha?
I think let me just okay. Hope I'm audible. Yeah. So let me take this question. Sudhir, from a AI perspective, yeah, I see. Like as Pranav was saying, one is on the content development. Okay, so the adoption of AI and ML actually will play a very large role in content development. That is one. Second is the learner's engagement. So I think probably, I don't know, maybe I've not seen so much of AI playing a very key role in the learner's engagement, but I would love to see that, because in a large organization like ours, learners engagement is one of the key challenge, and I'm sure most of you agree with that, right? I mean, it's a volume game, right? So I mean, I want to see a pattern. I want to see the practices of the learners, like how can we fast engage with them, and also the attention span of the learners is a challenge, because if you look at the learners, like you cannot engage them for more than like 2 hours or 1 hour very actively in learning. So that's exactly why the bite-sized learning became very famous, and we have employed a lot of it in a lot of our programs. Okay, so I see AI yet to play a role in the learners engagement. Okay, but otherwise, the third very important thing is on the gamification part of it. Okay, so I think the AI and the ML piece need to play a very, very big role in the gamification, because though all of us from L&D have been talking about gamification, but I personally still feel that in the learning, the gamification is still not taken the space and the pace it is supposed to have been taken. Over to you, Himanshu.
Thanks, Asha. And well, I kind of agree with what Pranav and Asha are saying. In fact, I'll just try to summarize. What Pranav and Asha both have said is they would want AI to play a larger role because there are many areas that we need to focus on. And if you look at, again, for me, AI is at this point of time, it's a buzzword. Everyone talks about AI in everything. Like, and being in the HRMS space, I hear it more often than not. They want predictive analytics, they want to know XYZ from AI, and everyone is talking about AI. But when we get to the core of things and we ask, okay, what is the historical data that you have? Because if you talk about ML, it has to be trained on historical data. You talk about AI, it will catch patterns and then it will predict certain things. We don't have that data itself. And we are talking about training people or other things on that. tough at this point of time. So AI at this point of time continues to be a buzzword, and it is not something that we are really applying in any area of at least human resources. We are trying to, all of us are trying to, but we are not. But then one thing which has really picked up, and AI is being used to a certain extent, is as Asha said, in terms of learner engagement. That is what is picking up. In future, we can see more learning experience will be improved. This is what I search, this is what I do, this is what I need. So there will be learning experiences management tool, and AI can benefit there to us. And the second place where AI can really make a difference, and I'm not sure again if it is AI, but with classroom sessions going out of vogue, virtual reality will become a big thing. So if I have to say I'm a manufacturing employee, I need to understand how certain things are done. A video might not serve the purpose. We might need to get into virtual reality to apply. And because I come from manufacturing and I did work with Tata Motors for 3 years, and I was there on the shop floor, one training that we used to give on the shop floor to every worker is how much torque you put on a particular when you tighten a nut or bolt. Now, how many ever videos that you show to people, they will never know how to tighten a bolt without doing it themselves. So virtual reality is going to play a larger role in the future for every other phase, and that's where I think technology will help. I'm not sure if it qualifies as AI, but then yes, technology.
Yeah. Right. So we have seen that, like, with the diverse and diverse talent spread across multiple locations, technology has to play a role, and we have to use digital learning, which is critical for employees' growth. Correct. And at the same time, I'm like, even from the research, I'm like, all of these MOOCs have and reported anything greater than 15% engagement rates or course completion rates. So, one side, you definitely need digital learning. The second side, the engagement rates are very, very low, and course completion rates are very, very low. So at the end of the day, I'm like, we are seeing the need for upskilling and reskilling for every employee in every dimension or every function. So how are you trying to solve this problem by incorporating L&D into a broader set of requirements for the employees? For example, are you saying them like, no, we expect you to learn this or this? This is how your career path is going to be. You got to be knowing ABC for you to go into the next role. Is there any different thing? At the end of the day, bottom line, I think I strongly feel it boils down to the individual's motivation. We call it like, in-person training or digital training. The motivation plays a critical role about learning. So how are you, are there any different ways or techniques that have worked for you in your previous companies or the current companies, or the trends that you see that will happen to solve this problem? Asha, you want to share something that's trending in HR tech L&D world?
Okay, I think, yeah, learners engagement, as I said, is a very, very key and very challenging. So having said that, what kind of a learnings a user or an employee will take? So usually what trend we have seen is that, for example, I take data science today, right? AI, ML. So if you have any digital learning platform available within, I have seen the trend that most of the younger generation and also even the older generation part of it, would tend to show a lot of interest in some of the today's technology skills. Okay, so if you leave it to them, if you leave the choice to them, but would they complete that learning? If you ask me, no, they don't. They're interested, they look to be motivated, but they don't complete. So what is the reason? Because in any organization, upskilling and cross-skilling continuously happens, right? Cross-skilling, though, for serving the business, and upskilling basically is to make people develop themselves. Look at a very, very positive career progression and a career growth path for employees, right? So once you have your career progression programs defined very well, okay, and you kind of communicate that very well, you socialize that very well, you communicate the objectives and the end objectives and the goals and what is covered and all to the employees, we have seen the adoption of those upskilling programs are quite wide and in depth. Coming to cross-skilling, a lot of it is because if it is business driven, and it's kind of will make mandatory for them. If they don't learn the scripting, they will not be able to do the work tomorrow. So that kind of forces them to kind of come into the learning box. Okay. But otherwise, the upskilling programs, usually what happens is, because we focus on career progression, generally, it's a very, very one of the famous programs where my employees would adopt. Okay. So these are the two patterns, but otherwise, from a completion perspective, there are challenges. There are lots of ways and means we use it, and like we take a different routing mechanisms to ensure that the learners take that commitment of learning, whether it is a 20-hour or a 40-hour or a 30 hours kind of learning.
Got it. Pranav, have you seen any correlation between employees who have taken a lot of these self-paced courses, and be it digital learning or anything, and their career progression? Is there any insights that say something that can make it exciting for employees to know people who have learned these courses and who've been taking up all of the advanced courses are progressing faster in their careers over the people who are haven't been stagnant without taking any additional courses on their own motivation? Have you seen any correlation or some from your organizations?
Yeah, so see, it is very important to upskill. It's not only in terms of what you are doing currently, but also where you see yourself in the next 4 to 5 years, right? So it's not only limited to the core competencies that you are working on right now. So a person who is working from in an engineering background can, be working in it for so let's say 4 to 5 years, and then he goes to, let's say, an executive MBA program kind of stuff, or something that is within the organization. So that provides an exponential growth trajectory to his career path. So yeah, I have seen a lot of instances in which people who have been from an engineering background have worked with a particular company for, let's say, 3 to 4 years. Then from the company itself, they've gone to executive MBA programs, or other learning development programs, and scaled beautifully.
Yeah, I can't agree more on that topic. I've seen a lot of people going from engineering background to managerial growth, especially when they hit a particular point in their career. They have a choice either to go as an individual contributor or as a managerial path. The only option is for them to upskill and learn the management skills, because they've been speaking to the system more than people until their career. And that is one area where I've seen a lot of adoption. That's a very great point, Pranav. Anything you would like to add on that, Himanshu?
Yeah, just a bit of tangent point, but I would just like to place it here. See, the context that we come from, especially in India, and I think it is a bit of a product of the culture. So for us, if you see, we have learning till a point of time, and then work starts. We don't come from a context of continuous learning and working. We come from a context of, okay, you are supposed to do your graduation and MBA or whatever, and then you join a company and then you start working. So again, the concept of learning while working is something that comes only when organizations force it. And that's where a continuous learning culture is a very important context which an organization needs to set for all their people. And coming from there, I believe it has to be, it has to be a bit of a carrot and stick approach. And when I say carrot and stick, what it means is learning has to be linked to multiple HR systems and multiple HR processes. Many a times in many organizations, you'll see learning stands out. You do learning, no effect on your performance. If you're doing great, fine. There's no career progression relationship. And that's where, when in fact, even in Darwinbox on the platform, we are trying to integrate learning with performance, trying to integrate learning with career progression, with HIPO. You identify high potentials, you develop the individual development plan, what you need to give. So all of these need to come together for any organization for learning really to take effect. And then, yes, you will have, Asha mentioned about gamification, rewards and recognition. You'll have to give them rewards, points, and everything so that people continue learning and seeing the short-term rewards as well. And until unless you build this carrot and stick approach for learning, because of the context and the culture that we are coming from, continuous learning as a culture will not be sustained in an organization. And when kudos to organizations like HCL and other similar organizations that are there who have ensured that India, at least in this space, stands out by building a learning culture?
So one of the situation that we all face today with social media and access to information is, I'm like, there is information that's thrown at us, even if we like it or not, depending on this what we subscribe to and where we show our interest, right? There is tons of websites doing profiling on our applications or on our systems every day, and sharing us a lot of information through blogs, webinars, and all of such things. Correct. There is one type of learning which is more about like, okay, learn all the blog, watch all the YouTube videos, attend all the webinars that come your way, and like, try to keep on ad hoc learning. It kind of gives a sense of feeling that you're learning. It feels like a continuous learning, but I strongly feel that is not a very goal-based learning. That is a very ad hoc learning. It just kind of keeps you busy. Whereas the other side of learning is more of a goal-based learning. Yes, I am an engineer today. I want to become a manager tomorrow, which means I need to take an executive MBA. I am a recruiter today and I want to become a data scientist. I need to take this set of courses, correct? And that is exactly where we come into the picture and provide them with assistance about training them and upskilling them, giving them the courses and all of those things, correct? So how do you reward employees or teach them to create time? For example, in my role, what I've done is if people want to learn new technologies, rather than it's hard for people to get into these new habits because they want to do these things as a pastime. I'm like, they're reading a blog and there's no accountability and all of those things. So I started creating some space for them to say, like, Friday is a learning day if you want to reach some courses, or you want to attend a conference about a data science. That is one of the places where you get like a lot of information than like reading 100 blogs. So attend, if you are a recruiter or if you are somebody in the business side and want to get into data science, I send them to a data science conference, understand the buzz going around, trends going around, see if that is for you, come back, tell me exactly what is the role you want, and then take a courses. But we'll support you from the organization because all these Coursera and all of those things are very cheap, right? They don't cost you a lot. But at the same time, the time is the most expensive thing. And we've started to create a Friday afternoon as a learning session, and then come back and share the learnings with other people. Because one of the things what we all strongly believe is accountability, and teaching is the best way of learning. So that is something that we started at our organization, and that has really helped people change into DevOps roles and data science roles from across our organization. Likewise, are there any things that you have tried at any of your organizations that you would like to share as a takeaway for our attendees to try it at their companies? Anyone can take it. I would love to hear from any of you, Asha, Pranav, Himanshu.
Okay, let me just take it first. Yeah, so how we generally would do is, as I said, I took the data science example, and I said, when you give it to them on their own, they start enrolling, but they don't complete. That shows the commitment, and that shows they're lost somewhere. Okay, so definitely what we do is usually the up and cross skilling programs, which are career progression oriented. So we have a very, very methodical, and we have a very clear learning paths defined for each of the individual roles and how they can progress in the respective domain or subdomain. It could be learning and development domain, or it could be a sales and marketing, or it could be, for all a completely an architect kind of a role, or it could be an infrastructure administrator, whatever it is. So we have a lot of the learning paths defined, and we have the career progression programs carved out, designed for each of these domains. And every quarter, there is a very, very defined frequency with which we give an opportunity to employees, and we launch our career progression programs, and the managers and the business leaders are aware that the employees have to attend these programs, otherwise their role will become stagnant. As I said, see, today I'm a L2 administrator of Linux, and I want to go on to the next level of expertise in administering the Linux. I have to take this program, otherwise you will have to learn on the job, right? And on the job learning and then experimenting will take longer time for you to go to an L3 level. So what we do is very, very methodically, these kind of career progression oriented programs are calendarized, are designed and calendarized. Okay, and employees are made aware about, what are the rewards and what are the incentives and what are the benefits and the outcomes of these programs. Okay, so how is that an employee is going to benefit in addition to an organization benefiting? Because if my resource move from one level of the skill to the next level, it is not only the business which is going to be benefiting, it is also as an individual I'm going to be benefiting, because I'm going to acquire the next level of the skill, right? So these calendarized career progression programs are of great help, where we incentivize people, and also, we kind of bind them into a very defined schedule and a calendar. Okay, and it happens very regularly. It happens very, very regularly. And in fact, Sudhir, I totally agree with you. There was one point which you were talking about, and also Himanshu touched upon that. And if you don't connect the learning as part of the objectives of the people, it is not going to be taken seriously. See, there are two reasons why we all have to learn. I mean, we all have to continuously learning something in life, right? I mean, whether it is technical or non-technical, even at home, right? We learn from our children, we learn from our maids who come in to, help us. So what happens is, either, your business is going to be impacted if employees stop learning, or you're going to be stagnated in your career. So it is not a win-win for both of us. So exactly why you need to learn, and that's exactly why we have taken that calendarized approach, and continuous opportunity given, rewards given to employees. And also rewards need not have to be in one sort. There are various kinds of rewards we give. We give an opportunity for them to take on the next role. We present him to a customer saying that, look, he's gone through these programs and he's ready to take up the next role. Okay, so you have been seeing, how HCL has been even taking our freshers in the US market, and I'm sure you guys would have seen in the LinkedIn in the last 4-5 days, we are doing a Rise at HCL Academy, and we have been on a very successful path. We're taking the freshers on the board, and we are trying to run an academy for them. Okay, so I think this is how we do it in HCL.
Great. One of the challenge, one of the thing with most job applications, what we have noticed is a prerequisite for people to enter into a job is the background that they are looking for. Anybody trying to hire a QA engineer or a data science engineer, they're always expecting a computer science background in their graduate degree. So while there is a lot of emphasis on learning and development, and the kind of ad hoc learning or short span of time where people are trying to take these intensive courses to upskill themselves, the finding a job for these people coming through these kind of learnings has still been a challenge. At Shortlist, one of the things that we are strongly believe is we don't take your educational degree into the background, into the application consideration, but we care more about show us what you can do. As long as you can solve this data science problem, I don't care. If you're a chemical engineer or a mechanical engineer in your previous life. But that adoption is not being seen so widely across the companies. And that is one thing that candidates often cite as the biggest problem to finding a job, even though I'm upskilling myself. Within the company, yes, people are helping them, creating these career progressions and helping them. But when they come outside the company, how people are valuing these learnings and at least asking them to come to attend the interview, forget about giving the job. How are organizations addressing this issue, and how are you evaluating as part of your hiring process, Pranav or Himanshu?
So Sudhir, as you rightly said, we don't want to commit mistakes in hiring, right? Because that is one of the costliest mistakes that any organization ends up committing. And for that, you go for a safer option. If you just evaluate, if you're getting a DevOps guy who has worked for 5 years in DevOps, and you are going for someone who has done a training in DevOps and upskill themselves, I'll go for a 5-year DevOps guy. I'll not go for someone who has done a training. So again, the acceptance of the training, and because you mentioned there are so many MOOCs available, there are Coursera's and different things in the world that are there. None of them, and in fact, if you look at most of the established institutes, XLRI, IIM, everyone has started their own executive programs, and all of those are there. Those are accepted. None of those are validated or certified. And it will take its own time. It is not going to happen today. I, for my organization, will not commit a mistake on betting on someone who has just done a skilling or training program and then taking them versus someone else. And also because there is a supply of certain skill already available and will not go for this training program. So yes, again, we will be conservative, and this is what I sense is most organizations will be conservative, because hiring is one of the costliest things that you do to the organization. You can't commit a mistake there.
Any thoughts you'd like to add on if this is the approach of like how would employees take their learning, and like, you know, when would they get their first break if they are trying to upskill and reskill when they want to see? Sometimes not every organization has a role for everybody, correct? So there cannot be a data science role or a DevOps role in every organization, but somebody wants, a software developer wants to become a DevOps, right? The only option is going out. And when they go out, if they cannot value any of these skills, how is the ecosystem going to support this kind of learning?
See, that is where the startups have become very essential for such kind of setups, right? Because the initial or the first employees that we hired, we were not looking at skill or whatever. We are looking at intent. And because, and I'm saying this out in the open, resources were not in plenty. So we were looking at intent rather than the skills. And if I had the skill of a data scientist or I have done a training, I want to do it, you'll get an option in a startup. You'll not get it in an established organization. And that is the way to sustain it. And that's why startups have become so important part of the ecosystem to enable this continuous learning, to churn out the right people, give them the right way, give them the right experience, and then push them to the larger roles in the organization. Plus, again, see, it goes without saying, when you're looking at the Gen Z needs immediate rewards. I will only do a training of 30 days if I get something at the end of the 30th day, or I get something at the end of the 45th day. If it is anywhere beyond that, I'm not interested. And that's where there's a lower adoption. Until unless you show me a real benefit standing at the end of the 30th day, I'm not that long-term oriented. I'll do it in a short span. I want the reward. And that's where internal organization movement is the opportunity I see today. I don't know if I've answered your question, but then, yeah, that is how I see it.
I totally agree with what you're saying. I'm just curious to hear from Pranav or Asha to see how are large companies thinking about addressing this concern.
Okay. I think I was so tempted, and because this is what we day in and day out do. It's a volume business, as Himanshu was saying. Initially, because of the sustenance, you may, even if a trained guy you may hire, but then you start to look out for the expertise, right? See, we as an organization, we strongly believe that given certain basic, very, very basic skill prerequisites, I would call, we have the learning paths, and we can cross-train anybody from any domain into any domain. Okay, except a very few exceptions. Possibly I would say about 20 to 30% or 25% exceptions. The rest of the 75%, we strongly feel that, if a lateral employee is there, okay, we can look at, depending on, what is the kind of the role and the prerequisite skills he has, we can definitely cross skill him. But it requires an industry tested curriculum and industry tested learning path, how we would design and deploy to ensure that his acceptability is there from the business, okay, and he delivers it. Because it's not easy, it's like all of us have been experienced resources or professionals in the delivery, right? See, you are hands-on and you develop something, and you have acquired that skill, but I take a person who has been an expert in some other skill and train him and do on-the-job training and deploy him. There is certainly going to be a difference for some time. So there is also a mechanism from a L&D perspective, the various methodologies where you can adopt and see that how this trained person can be made part of the business, okay, and how he can be slowly kind of induced into delivery. I mean, that's what I use the word. I tell my dad, we have to induce him slowly,
Right.
so that, he takes some time. Of course, it's not that he can't jumpstart, but
Right.
definitely with the L&D, we can do it, and we day in and day out, we do that. We cross-skill people. It is not only upskilling, we cross-skill them.
Right.
We take a guy and we put him on cloud. He doesn't know the ABCD of the cloud. And we do that for fresh talent as well. Forget about the lateral employees. We do it for freshers as well.
Right, right. Great. Thank you so much, everyone. We will take the last few minutes to answer some questions from the attendees. We have one question from Priyanka.
So there are a couple of ways. Yeah, Priyanka, go ahead with your question.
Yeah,
just
I
have to
see it's typed in the Q&A. I can put this here, actually. It says, how can L&D department create an effective talent retention strategy when cross-skilling and upskilling lies at the core of the issue? I think I'm like, what I would say is definitely, as long as Himanshu touched on it, irrespective of the generation we are trying to address, as long as they have something that they are that can see what they're going to get out of it. Say you learn these skills and ABC skills, and then you're going to get into a promotion. You're going to get into an opportunity to try a new role. Once they see that guarantee or a possibility, a clear potential, that is where it's going to be very exciting. And once you create those opportunities to help people move laterally, it's going to be more exciting for the other employees, is what I feel. Anybody else wants to answer?
I think absolutely. Priyanka, it is the site of the career for an employee is very, very important. Like once as an L&D person or a L&D department, you are ready to show that this is the career path which an employee can take. That is one of the biggest reward and a retention, kind of a mechanism which we can, deploy on the ground. Of course, there are other kind of retention strategies from a core HR perspective, but from a learning perspective, we strongly feel that there are two things we do. One is continuously show them the career path and line of sight of career for them, saying that where their career is going to be, how they can grow their career, number one. Number two is that we also believe in that what we can also do is we need to keep specializing people. It's not that we just train them. We also tell them, why don't you go and specialize in AWS? Take these certifications, because specialization is very, very important, right? So that is also another thing what we want to do.
Fantastic panel. Thanks again, Asha ma'am, for addressing this. Just a quick follow-up question, though. Is there like a data-driven way to actually predict when a particular lateral employee or like a fresher needs a certain skill set that currently HCL adopts, or anywhere you have seen in the market that you would like HCL to adopt?
Actually, constant training need or learning need identification. There are two ways, how we can look at it. One is constantly going back and polling business and the employees about, what their training needs are and what their learning needs are, and then analyzing it and calendarizing them and planning them. That is one. Second one is proactively look at what is the landscape of the business you are in, See, are you in an application development landscape of the business? Are you in the infrastructure business? And look at what is the infrastructure landscape demands. It's different levels of employees to be skilled with. Okay, then as a L&D, along with the business and along with the technology teams and the SMEs within the organization, go ahead and devise the programs and build all those things into your career learning paths or whatever. So in both ways we can do it. And the third way, which is very ad hoc, is a very reactive way. An employee will stand up and say, hey, I know tomorrow if I don't know this Python scripting, then I'm gone. I'll not be able to continue with my job, or I cannot support my customer. That's a very reactive approach. But as a good organization, or as an organization who cares for the employees' growth and the customers' commitments, we wouldn't be doing the third one, but we would definitely service if there is a reactive request. But we always focus on the proactive mechanism. We constantly poll employees and we constantly devise programs based on the landscape of the business we are in.
Great.
Perfect. Thank you so much for answering those questions.
Thank you. Shankar, I think we have a couple more Q&A. I don't want to cut off anybody's question and answers, but I have a hard stop at 4. So I would hand it over to Shankar from here to moderate and answer these questions.
Sure, no problem, Sudhir. We can take it forward. So there is one more raise hand from Mr. Jayendra. Yeah, Mr. Jayendra, you can unmute yourself and ask the question.
Hello everyone, this is Jay from clusters.ai. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead with the question.
Yeah, I wanted to understand your perspective on experiential learning. So especially in the more complex fields like data science and AI, right? So that is moving away from a typical slide and talk model to learning through a variety of mix of lectures and interactive activities like games, role plays, group discussions. So I firmly believe that the kind of theoretical learning has been deeply ingrained in our education system these days, right? So do you think this kind of experiential learning models help the users to move more towards application-focused learning rather than learning just a bunch of theoretical concepts?
I can answer this. Especially because I'm like, no, I have seen people take up these kind of courses on, especially on data science and artificial intelligence. Like you rightly said, Jayendra, it holds very, very little value unless there is experiential learning. And one of the thing we strongly believe is, like, even people have taken certain ABC courses. I'm like, one of the thing I look for when hiring people coming through these kind of curriculum is, have you participated in any hackathons? What are the latest projects? I'm like, what is your GitHub profile like? What are the projects that you have contributed to? That will kind of give me a texture about like, how deep they have learned it. And like, how they have you done any freelancing work on Top Coder or something of that sort, right? There is so many opportunities. Even if you do not have a full-time role in that particular technology, you can always gain some non-profit, or you've been helping non-profits. So strongly believe in experiential learning. And just a theoretical learning of saying that I have attended this ABC courses is never going to cut it to find a job. That has been, and in addition to all of those things, once they pass, they show some proof that they have evidence that they have taken these kind of courses. Then we also ask them, give them a case study and have them do a case study. That is how we have been so far successful in hiring people coming through this kind of learning. That said, I thoroughly enjoyed the whole session. Unfortunately, I have a hard stop, which I cannot change. But thank you so much for the engaged audience and panelists. I will hand it over to Shankar from here and drop off. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Sudhir.
So, I'd like to thank you. Thank all the speakers for joining us, for having us here. With all the insightful topics, insightful points we have discussed so far. From upskilling to cross skilling, that was one of the important points which I felt has been done by many of the corporates here. From other discussion points, I'm sure our attendees have enjoyed it. Thank you so very much for joining us, for giving your time for this session. Thank you so very much. Thanks, Himanshu. Thanks, Sasha.
Thanks, Shankar.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you, everyone.
To have you all. Yeah.
Thanks, Shankar, and thank you, everyone. It was nice listening to all your views, and thank you, participants.
Thank you. Thank you so much.